What's up, everybody? We're here to talk about everything Crucible of the Storms. My name's Rich, and I am joined by Bay, aka Final Boss, and we got Preach. And guys, I think we just start off with the fact that Preach, we were talking about this raid in particular and how it's just been fantastic to watch the progression. First of all, Pieces already able to kill that first boss. They're the only group that's been able to do it so far.
This has been like the best spectator raid we've had in ages, and we're not casting it. And we spoke about it at the last World First race, and everyone was like, it's going to be dead before the EU even wakes up. It's a waste of time. We're not going to bother with it. And now we've got a raid, which is not only do we have Limit's point of view now, which is something we were desperate for because we could only really see methods. And then they're taking it kind of easy. They don't have the idyllic rosters. They're having fun with it, which is great. You can tell the guys are enjoying this raid. They're not taking it that seriously because it's such a small thing. And then Pieces says, hold my Cosmo. This is our moment, and comes storming in with the size 12s and completely throws it out the window. And I'm watching this going, this is amazing. Like, this is the best thing we want to happen in raiding in so long, is to have like more competitors in there, seeing everybody's different strategies because the raid styles are so different. It's awesome. It's so good.
Yeah, and Bay, I kind of feel like one of the things to note is when we were in London for BOD, you kind of talk about all of the different groups. And when you talk about Pieces, this is a group that we knew could really go the distance in a race. So we talked about even what they could accomplish in BOD, but we talked about the fact that they can't necessarily dedicate the same amount of time. A two-boss raid seems like an environment that Pieces could potentially thrive in.
Well, that's depending on how long we're here. I know when we were setting up the show, Rich was like, we're going to be here for 8 weeks. And I said, no, please, please not. But two bosses, and we talked a lot about at the Battle of Dazar Lore about sort of a similar raid with Helia and that 3-boss raid. It only took like 3 days. But we have already crested a full reset, and Restless Cabal has only been killed by just Pieces, just one guild. So they've been working and they have the head start on Uu'nat, but then what is the tuning going to be there? What are we seeing there? We've saw pretty low wipes so far from the method guys, but is this going to be done in a full reset? It all depends on, I guess, on the numbers.
So yeah. Some insider info I got is that Pieces knew that, the other guys were kind of like, they're serious, but they're going to have fun with it. And they knew that this was their time to break out and say, we're here, boys, and we're taking this seriously. Like, they planned very heavily to go very hard in Crucible and get their name on the board as somebody to be recognized. And that seems to be paying off for them right now, because we're here and we're talking about them, and they're ahead right now. They're dealing with Uu'nat. And we don't know, as you said, we don't know anything about it because they're not streaming it. Like, we're keeping this one under wraps right now. We're ahead and we're playing the game. And that's what's got me inspired. It's like these guys have taken this sort of methodical approach and gone, okay, Limit did say, they weren't going to day raid, but then they did day raid, but some people are still working who they might want in the idyllic roster. Method's kind of the same thing. And then they've gone, let's go for it. Let's do it. Let's stamp our mark on the raid scene. Let's put ourselves up there in this top bundle of players, because we're sick of the Method and Limit conversation. It's just those two. We're here as well. And that's what's made it so cool, because you have that underdog just come in. You've always had there in the background for a long time now. We've always seen Pieces come very, very close. Yeah. And then now they're saying, no. We're ready. We're ready to take that next step to move up and play with the big boys at the very top and go for that world first. And it's great to see that when it works, because you hate to see them try so hard. And they're trying so hard right now and it not work. And now they've done something we haven't seen in a long time, is not only have they killed it, but they have killed it hours and hours before the next contenders have really come close. Like, we've seen some low percentage wipes, but very scrappy when they're getting there, really sort of pushing it to get those percentages. And those last few percent are a little bit on the difficult side. So they've really stamped their mark on this. And that's what's been great to see.
Yeah, and definitely do want to talk about those mechanics in a little bit and talk about why the end of the fight does seem just so difficult to get through, why we're seeing so many of these pulls happen in that 20% area. But before we do touch on that, I just want to bring up one thing really quickly, and that is the idea of the only thing that we do know about Uu'nat right now is it isn't a complete walkover, right? Because we had Pieces get down that first boss so quickly. They make it to the second boss, and I know a lot of us were joking around in all the different chats, whether we're in Limits chat or Methods chat, kind of saying, saying, oh yeah, the first boss is really hard, and then we're going to get all the way over to that second boss, and it's just going to be a joke. It's going to be a walk in the park. That is not the case, because Pieces has not been able to get it down yet. It's going to be exciting to see Uu'nat preach. Why do you think we are seeing so many guilds get caught up right now in that, that 20-30% mark?
Well, there's a bit of information we do know about this. And I think Blizzard has done a very cool thing here. Is from what we know, these two bosses, Uu'nat and the Restless Cabal, have been designed by one guy. That was his task, is to design both of these fights. And as far as we know, it was somebody who did not design any of the BOD fights, right? So this is somebody who's been his task, is to deal with this. Now, I think that's correct. We have that on a reliable source, but I could be wrong. I just want to put that out there. It might not be correct, but that's, as far as I know, that's the truth. And I think what they did is they said, only a few guilds have really killed Jaina yet, despite the world first race being so long ago now. There's only 400 so guilds that have killed Jaina. So there's actually a very limited niche availability of this boss, because nobody's going to be bothering with this until they've killed Jaina, right? So they've looked at it and they've gone, we see what you guys are doing. If you looked at Method's roster, and I got sent this tweet, the week after Jaina died, 7 Shadow Priests joined Method. Some of them were alts, some of them were some new blood, some of them were returning players, but they could see, and they're preparing for the next raid, and they see how powerful Shadow Priests are. They're banking on the idea that Blizzard's left Shadow Priest in the rough for a really long time in BFA, and they're probably not going to squish them to the ground just yet. So they're going to get these overpowered classes in. And the devs have gone, we see what you're doing. We can check your roster just as any normal player can. We see what you have available. So we're free right now to put something in front of you that really pushes you, because no one else in the rest of the player base can even try this boss. They're not even there. They're still dealing with BOD. So now we can really see just what you guys can put out there, given the fact that you've got, 6 alts with 4 10-item level plus. You've got all the AP in the world. You have access to everything we can possibly muster. Fine. We're going to play to that, because the other guys aren't even going to try it yet. Let's see what you guys can do. And I think they've nailed it, because we do know one thing. This boss is killable. And I imagine if we didn't know Pieces had killed it, we might be in this is a really tough situation. You can almost imagine us talking about it, be like, this is some really tough stuff. But we do know this boss is doable. Tight. It's very, very tightly tuned. It requires mad class stacking, which is something the top guilds do have available to them. We all have that. It's not a top 10 guild thing. The top 50, the top 100, top 200, they have access to a lot of class stacking because gear's so freely available. And the devs seem to have gone, cool, let's see what we can do with it. Let's see what you're going to do if you're going to bring 7+ Shadow Priests or a ton of Warlocks. Let's see exactly what we could put out there. And over time, we'll nerf it down. Hopefully, a lot of the player base doesn't see that as off-putting. Like, this is crazy, it's overtuned, I don't want any part of this. We all need access to 9 Shadow Priests to do this. There's a very niche market for this boss right now. There's only 400 guilds. Awesome. And that's what they're doing. I think it's a great decision. Fine. You guys are in the top creme de la creme of the entire player base. You have all these resources. Let's see what you can do with it instead of just overpowering the content all the time. And this is what we get out of that.
I also want to just really quickly here give a huge shout out to Final Boss. I've never seen somebody run production like this. This is insane.
It's not all crafted.
Everything going. Yeah, usually, sometimes I'm trying to see production stuff go down, and there's just Skype calls ringing and things like that. Bay is holding down the fort right now, so thank you so much for everything that you're doing holding down the fort.
I want to make sure that everyone watching gives the credit to where it's due, though. I'm going to be pushing the buttons during this entire show. Method approached me about running the production, but all the art and assets you're going to see here were all put together from the Method team and their artists themselves. So it's Pleb and Stefano doing all this stuff that makes it look this good. I'm just putting things in places and pushing buttons, all right? They're just talking.
Dude, that Crucible, all the Crucible of the Storm stuff that they have put out actually looks so awesome. It's neon purple. So it looks so good. It looks so good. And I think that it really does suit the theme of the raid as well, because and everything about the raid is so thematic, even when it comes down to the gear. That's one of my favorite things about it. It feels like the gear that you're getting fits that same idea into how the bosses are designed. And as much as we're talking about this being a niche raid and a raid that is very focused on bringing players that are going to push the amount of damage that you're able to get done, I think this is one of my favorite tiers that I've seen in a long time, especially for something that is only focused on 2 bosses. Let's actually talk about Restless Cabal, though.
Yeah, I wanted to interject on you, Rich, because I wanted to. Do you want to classify this two boss mini raid as its own tier, or are you just considering this is the entirety of, I guess, tier 23, right? The Battle of Dazara lore. These 10 bosses are sort of one continuous path. That's what Blizzard said. Are we in that?
Okay, so if this was any other time in WoW, I wouldn't consider it a new tier. But with how the game feels right now and how rewards actually do feel and how much this actually turned rewards on its head in a big way, I call this a new tier because I see big changes in the way things are designed and I like it a lot and I want to give credit where credit's due. I love the gear that is in this, and a lot of the gear so far in BFA I haven't been a huge fan of. So I do want to basically say the amount of work that's been done for this raid I want to give them credit. I basically want to give them credit, and I kind of want to call it a whole new tier. And so far, I am on board. I like it. It's a-okay.
I'm defending Rich, no, because they're definitely the gear goes up in eye level. It goes up +5 each difficulty for the heroic to mythic, etc. So you actually get up to 425. Uu'nat drops the highest gear possible in the game right now. So he's 10 eye levels higher than Jaina.
Yeah,
and Kabbalah's 5 levels higher.
Yeah, and the other thing is too is as much as item level, you can talk about item level defining what it means to be in a tier, which is fine. I think that's a fine thing for some of the people in chat who are saying that. I just look at this gear right now and the way that it's designed. It's new. It's a new reward in an expansion where we've seen pretty much rewards that check the same boxes time and time again. Let's talk about Restless Cabal just a little bit and talk about how this boss actually does work and what the main changes are in Mythic compared to what we're used to in Heroic. And Final Boss, I'm definitely going to leverage you for this and start off that talk. What should people be paying attention to?
We're flying into the cockpit right now while we break it all down too. So we're going to fly right into the...
I don't want to be in the cockpit.
We're the Scripe's POV, right? He's the cockpit, all right?
Fly me into the cockpit, Daddy. Let's get in here.
Oh, no.
Get in here.
I did not
Speaking of that, I really do, talking about themes a whole lot. I love tentacles. I am a huge fan of
Where are we going?
tentacles.
I want out of the cockpit, boys.
We're going into the cockpit. You already know where we're going, Breach.
The captain wants out. I wish you sailors good journey.
Buckle on up. We have arrived in the cockpit. And as you can see...
So the tentacles, Rich, as you were saying.
Yeah, please continue.
It's about time that we start getting some tentacles served up. As far as... I'm not going to go into the lore. We're going to be doing that a little bit later when Nobbel actually does come on through. But... surprise, Nobbel's going to be here a little bit later. I think that it was already tweeted out. I'm sorry if I spoiled anything. But when we look at BFA as an expansion... we all knew we were going to be moving into a pretty interesting area as far as theme is concerned. We start off, though, it's very much that Horde versus Alliance feeling, and I love the fact that we're moving forward, because I don't like the Horde Alliance stuff. It kind of bores me a little bit. It's stuff that we've seen before. Tentacles, that's what I'm about. That's why I play WoW. I play WoW for the wriggling tentacles. Plenty of those going on here as well with these mechanics. How do you guys like this?
Just get all of it out on day one. So like a week from now, if we're still here, Rich, we're not still talking about tentacles. Because I'll give that to you.
I'm pretty sure by then it's going to be very descriptive on the tentacles. Very descriptive.
I don't think we should get it all out here. I think we'll table some of the tentacle talk for when Nobbel comes through. He's a fellow tentacle expert. But we have some mechanic experts up in here right now. Let's talk about everything that people need to know. We got into the cockpit for a little bit. It was a wipe. What are the main mechanics for Restless Cabal? Let's start off by actually just talking about stuff that even does exist in Heroic.
Do you want this?
It back?
Do you want
this?
Oh,
you go back. I unfortunately, due to an incident, I was unable to raid last week.
Oh, you haven't even done it on Heroic yet, have you?
No, there was a circumstance in which... I was casual. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Well, that happens, man.
I think
it's you have to be like you can't be casual when you want to be rating at the top tier. You need to make sure that you can get all of your consumables, get all of your potions. I
couldn't afford the potions. That's what it was.
Yeah. Okay. So, Bay, let's actually talk about some of these mechanics. What should the folks at home be paying attention to next time we swoop into the cockpit?
Well, the one thing I was going to bring up, even though the region doesn't exactly fit, so I'm just going to go over here and look at some things too. There's a huge post on Wowhead about why is the Restless Cabal proving so difficult, which is right here. And again, I'll have to clean these up for next time. It just cuts off a little bit of the text. I'm not sure why. But I can look at a couple of different tooltips, for example, because the big one that was having a big issue here that the players were dealing with was the Crushing Doubt, which is just a debuff that meteors. It goes on 2 players, and they just run it out, and it goes bloop, and they run it back in. This sort of alternates throughout the fight, where they have ones that are scary and ones that are not so scary. The issue apparently with this one, and what I was gathering from watching streams earlier today and sort of listening to different comms, if those that had comms on from Limit or say with Sleuthbag in future, is that Crushing Doubt has some, one would say, pasta code. Because if 2 happen at the same time, it deals more damage than it's supposed to. So if they desync it all, then it's fine. But if they are together, it's way more damage. And I don't know why that's a thing. I don't know why. Well, yeah.
But I've dealt with it a lot in real life. Crushing Doubt is something that it's a very difficult mechanic to deal with.
So you turn to the tentacles.
Definitely alleviates some of the pressure. But Preach, let's talk about Crushing Doubt. This is one of those things now we're in a situation, if it does overlap, it's going to be even more difficult to deal with, is what we're hearing from Bay, what we're hearing from some of the other raiders. So
this is a combo thing. That this whole fight is about combinations. That's all it is. We've seen that kind of idea before. This mechanic is very simple. Like Bay said, you get Crushing Doubt. It does more damage if you're closer to people. Just run away. You're going to be fine, and you'll do the least amount of damage you can to your raid. Unfortunately, this fight is extraordinarily tightly tuned, as we know. It not only requires, and this is what's been cool about watching both streams, is it requires absurd amounts of damage. That's why we're seeing so many Shadow Priests and Warlocks and doing all that range cleave. But you also need to buy some time to be able to stop DPS. So you need to do 2 things. It's not about just zerging the fight as fast as possible, just putting out immense damage and just crushing it into the ground to meet a berserk timer like you would see with Patchwork or the Butcher or something like that. In this, you actually need to be able to afford to buy some time to say, just hold DPS for a minute, because things overlap so much that you really need to make sure you're cleanly moving into different areas of the fight as you're activating the various, both bosses' major abilities, right? So that comes with the debuff that increases your damage, but it also reduces your HP. It's going to give it to most people. It's going to stack it to 9, and that means you're only going to have 10% of your HP. That's it. So although on frames you look like you're in great shape, the reality is you only have 10% of your health. And even though you are running out with Crushing Defeat, if they're syncing up and causing this extra damage, people have only have 10% health. So that little overlap there that's causing that extra damage is just wiping people out really quickly. And we've seen that throughout the day, is people just being blasted, even though pull before they would have been fine. And it's these overlaps that are causing this problem in a lot of cases. Sometimes it's guys just not running out just quite far enough. I saw that on a couple of the streams, is people just didn't go out just quite far enough, which ticked the damage up slightly, and that was just too much to tip people over the edge. So you're seeing a lot of people with overkills like 3k, 10k, which is nothing compared to a normal HP bar. But when you're at 10% health, that becomes a big problem. And all these combinations have to be timed up because they need to be dispelled when moving into unavoidable damage phases, because there's nothing you can do. You're going to take that damage. So the guys are doing whatever they can to maximize that uptime of that huge damage buff while playing super safe, because this place, as I'm sure you've seen, if you watch the stream, this whole floor is death. Everything is death. Yeah. It's being in an entire war, and the extra mechanics, which are probably Baker bring us in on, that are included in Mythic, are all designed to make dealing with those things way harder than they were before. So before it was like running around, dodging things, stay out of purple goo, you'll be fine. Now it's like, well, now we're going to suck you into the purple goo, and now we're going to drop these orbs that are going to stun you for 8 seconds. And because the floor is so dangerous, that's going to land on you now, and you can't get away from it. And you're going to have debuffs and need to be dispelled at the right time and pop cooldowns at the right time. It's all playing against your instincts as a player. And that's why this fight is really difficult, because all your natural instincts aren't working properly. Like everything you've been taught kind of goes against you in some ways. You're trying to maximize damage while simultaneously removing damage bonuses, things like that. And that's what makes it awkward and tricky. And also random deaths, because you're going to get these overlaps of these buffs. There ain't much you can do sometimes, right? If you've got 10% HP, you're not supposed to die there. You have to keep the debuff up. Then you get splattered into the floor. And that's what's going on in a lot of cases.
And also cool. It also makes it really cool. I think that's one of the things where you look at raid tiers and you look at encounters, and there's always kind of this question with the lexicon of knowledge the players have, the amount of add-ons and different things that you're using. How are we actually going to see a challenging mechanic that's interesting as well, and also something that's enjoyable to play through? And we've seen a lot of mechanics turned on their heads for this fight. And also there's a level of choice. How much do you feel like that choice exists, Bay, inside of Mythic? Like, do you feel like there's any choice based off of order, or do you feel like there is a pretty set way that they're going to be going about this fight for pretty much all progression guilds?
I think that's the most interesting part about this encounter as a first encounter. But again, if you want to put it in the overall, layer of this current tier plus half tier, it's definitely not a first boss. The interesting part that always comes up, that I know Mike and I have talked about previously on other shows here and there on the internet, is that usually when there's enough player choice or the buzzword agency on an encounter, you do have a different control over it. And I know I really enjoyed Mythic Gul'dan for this reason, for example, or like even Mythic Helia, both really, really good fights in Legion. This fight, the Restless Cabal, quite literally says both bosses do these abilities all the time. But there are 6 other abilities that you have to activate, and when you activate them, the other bosses react to them. But you have to do that combination of when do you activate the relics, right? So it's the Void Stone, it is the Trident of the Ocean, the Deep Ocean, and the Tempest Caller. And it looks like there definitely is a organization to them that they have found, that they go Void Stone, and then Trident, and then Tempest Caller. But timing when you activate and then deactivate them in Mythic, because they turn on, then turn off, is very much in the player's control. They pick that the entire fight. And that's the part of where what Mike was saying too, is that combos are the name of the game here. It's when you push the boss here, if you push them, say, 4 seconds too late, you're going to line that up with another ability that'll happen here. And that's sort of how Blizzard makes encounters difficult now. Because historically, when you go back in time, bosses only have so many mechanics that just kind of like, this one happens here, and then nothing happens for a while. But now it's that you'll get the relic activation when the ad spawns, when the debuff goes out, or when the soaks have to happen. And you get to choose, and everyone has to do their own little thing properly at the right time. Otherwise, you have like one person gets gibbed here, and then you fall behind by a little bit, and battle res or not. That's how those choices have to be strung in a line and figured out.
It's a very cool thing to watch. Like, and I also know that you kind of brought up the idea that we are seeing that order develop with the Voidstone, Trident of the Deep Ocean, and the Tempest Caller. But I was kind of watching at the beginning to see if people were going to try to flip it on its head or not. I think we saw Limit, and I don't think it was a choice of their own. They started to make some of the biggest strategy changes that we've seen out of any of the guilds that are streaming. I know that if you were watching any of their streams, they basically said, like, we're missing some of our players right now, so we're just going to try something completely different, still have valid attempts. Did we see Method go for any big changes at all into how they were trying to progress? Obviously, guys, if anybody's just coming in right now, Pieces has been able to get down the first boss.
Yep.
They're not streaming, though. So everything that we hear is through the grapevine, shrouded in mysticism, similar to
I think there are some members of Pieces in the stream, but they're probably going to stay secret.
You guys can tell us anything you want. They can even be lies, and we'll just read them.
Does he have tentacles?
So whatever you tell Rich might get taken off into the great white beyond right now with him. So
have some faith in the light, man. Have some faith in the light.
You're getting sucked away.
I wish. It's just a little bit of light here, but the sun should go down eventually. It'll go down eventually. Usually, I'm not up this early. But let's talk about the fight a little bit more. Let's talk about some of the other scary mechanics and how we're seeing people deal with it, and then we'll talk about some of those changes. So obviously, you got a big scary ad that's going to be throwing out a fear. Have we seen a lot of shamans been used for Tremor Totem? Is there a specific time when you want to see Tremor Totem come out, or is it just going to be based around the fact that you're going to get that damage out initially, and then you're going to use your dot dealing classes to keep them nice and low?
So that's...
I think, just to address the elephant in the room, Bay, is we have seen elemental shamans in a progress rate.
No,
And the void is truly here. Because that's not right.
First off, the elemental shamans are also being the ones, at least I've seen in certain POVs, they're the ones that are tanking Zakaj, Skinny Boy, as he's been called, the smaller one, the caster. Mostly because they can open with a huge opener and rip a lot of threat to let other DPS immediately start attacking so they don't get hit with the, is it called, let me double check, the aphotic blast, which is the mechanic that allows a range to tank the caster ad. And
love to see the return of caster tanking, by the way. That was a really nice touch. It's been too long.
Whoever designed this is the man. I'm actually very curious because there is that whole discussion right now of, yeah, this is somebody who didn't work on bot at all. Didn't work on, I can't even say it anymore, Dazazolor. He didn't work on it at all. She didn't work on it at all. I don't even think, does anybody, is there a rumor as to who did design it? Because I haven't heard that. The light is actually getting worse. What the heck? It's like, I just looked at myself and I was actually scared for a second there. But yeah, I think the big thing is there's a person who worked on this raid that didn't work on BOD. BOD had a lot of interesting mechanics. I think BOD was a well-designed raid all in all as well. This one's not only well-designed, but it's very well-tuned. I mean, for a two-boss raid, we saw them manage to get to the crescendo relatively quickly. Now we have two guilds working on that crescendo. Oh. Josh is crying. Why? Because
limits at 8%, boys. All alive.
Are they really? Hold on.
They really are.
Can we go into the cockpit?
Well, we can't go into...
Stripe's not going to show us its point of view.
No, hold on.
Method have just stopped streaming. Yeah, they've just stopped. They've just stopped raiding for the night.
Let me see if I can. I cannot bring up Max's POV.
Oh, Rich.
I can bring up Lighty, I'm told. I believe that is the correct POV I can bring up real fast here. Hold on a moment. We can fly into any of them. I just have to know ahead of time. But we can see what they're doing. Oh, wait.
I believe they're wiping. Oh, no.
Oh, no. Hold on.
Watch it.
I have to click all the buttons. Let's fly over. Let's fly over live. What's happening? This is going to be Lighty's POV in limit right now. Yep. Oh, I just.
This is going to be extraordinarily close.
Ooh, uh-oh. They're doing the kite and fight strat.
So sad. So sad.
Oh no.
Great sadness. We've all been there before, and you could only just think,
yeah.
It's still going. You never know. And this is what's been wonderful from a caster's point of view. It's so amazing that Method do put this together, and we all appreciate it. But it is so fun for us as looking on to have so many point of views.
This is Lighty.
What's happening? Although I have to question this American raid environment, Bay. It lacks memes. There's not enough memes. I've listened to the Limit Comms today. It's so relaxed. It's like being in a bar. I feel like they're all having a nice brandy, and they're listening to jazz. Where's the fire?
I was actually blown away because keep in mind, a lot of us haven't been able to watch them progression raid. It's not something that they've streamed as much as Method has in recent years. And all of a sudden you get into their raid comms and they're just hanging out. Like they are way calmer than we've heard a lot of groups be. I want to jump to kind of what did we see in BOD? What did the race actually look like for anybody who's maybe watching for the first time? Because I think we saw a very interesting thing out of Limit, and that was the fact that they were able to move through that raid faster than anyone during those first few days. Like the times that they had on those initial bosses.
Yeah.
Instantly. Like they deleted the beginning of BOD and then they kind of lost steam. Like they make it to Jaina, and we even hear that against Jaina that they're able to get the boss incredibly low very early on with the strategy that they're using, but they fall off a little bit, and we ultimately see Method get Jaina down first, having a fantastic time on Jaina, and then they get it down second as well, right? It's kind of the joke. This is a guild that we already had attention on because they were creeping up. They were getting very impressive progression down. But do you think that seeing Limit not get this first boss down as quickly, what does that say to you? What does it say to you, Bay, in your mind for a race based off of what we've seen from them in the past?
Well, I was going to give a shout out. Scott just jumped into chat and said, oh, Rich, come back to us. Scott just jumped into chat and said he doesn't remember, what's the actual quote? Because it was kind of somber. He doesn't remember a raid where they didn't kill a boss. Yeah, can't remember the last progress where we didn't kill a boss day 1. Followed by
Wow.
Skull Lull. There's a meme for you, Mike. Is that enough?
Oh, it's the Americans that need the spice.
Oh.
I have an idea.
Oh yeah. Oh, I trust the EU comms is hot fire all day, every day. It's the American rating. I mean, I'm not generalizing all of North America's rating here, but just listening to Limit, it's so calm. Everyone's chill. You know, they're having a good time, relaxed. You know, that's not how I rate. It needs to be furious. It needs to be furious.
Dude, I actually, when I raid, man, like I am typing the meanest stuff in LFR chat. Like when I raid, it's a very different attitude than what we see with these guys. Let's talk about some of the strategy changes that we did see from Limit. Obviously, the race has been going on for a little while. It's been going on for them for... They basically had their whole full day now that we can look back on. We didn't see every single pull because the show started. We were trying to juggle all those balls at once. But what were the biggest changes that you guys actually saw? Bay, we'll start off with you. What do you think are the important things the folks at home should be thinking about?
I have watched some comp changes. I know that the first thing I saw when Limit broke in at 10:30 a.m. when the raid came out yesterday was the actually ridiculous amount of overall priests, including discipline priests, because they were going to try, I would assume, it looked like they were trying to do shield stacking. And that didn't work because there is a cap on how much absorb your character can have on them. So that immediately changed. I think I saw something similar with Method with a number of discipline priests. They only have Josh now, I believe, just the one. And they went back with the Resto Shamans and the Holy Paladins in there. We do have the best pull, the 17.4 that I can switch over to. But I think the weird one, and this is what we talked about too during the Battle of Dazara Lore, and specifically Jaina, because we were sitting at Jaina, and Mike and I killed like 2 or 3 or 4 hours when nothing was happening, just talking about the fight because they weren't raiding, was that there was not a lot of comp changing from Method. They sort of like look at one thing and then Scripe says, nah, and they change it back up and get like kind of a stable comp, even though like Narcoles is playing a Warlock right now. So sorry, right, Paladins. But there's only 2 melee historically in all these kills right here, or these pulls, and then the 1 kill is 2 melee, 1. I think it's 1 melee. Yeah, one melee, and then 2 tanks.
Melee, there are a lot of reasons that melee in this fight is less than ideal. I mean, you can talk about the strengths that you have for a lot of these different casters right now. Like you can talk about the Warlocks, you can obviously talk about Shadow Priests and the strengths that these guys are going to have, they're going to actually bring to the table. But as melee, I was actually talking to, I was just in his chat, but you know, talking to the GM of Limit when they're progressing and kind of asking some questions based off of just to have some idea of what's going on. I was like, melee, why not? And abilities can be targeted onto the melee that actually make it so they need to get out, so they're not able to have the uptime that's necessary. It's a little bit scarier for them as well to actually go for those damage debuffs. Once again, causes them to lose uptime. And then you just look at everything the other classes can do. Preach. It seems like a no-brainer that you really don't want to be bringing melee to this fight for the most part.
No, especially because the damage needed is so tight. You need every drop. And when the damage numbers are tuned so high that, again, the designers know the guys can produce it. That's part of the reason this fight is tuned this way. They know that the guys have access to the resources to produce these kind of results. So when the damage is tuned this tightly as we know it is, then everybody who's slightly ahead is so much more important. Even if that difference is 5% or something like that, it doesn't matter. Now, Shadow Priests in particular are extraordinary at this fight because they get such a large damage buff from Twist of Fate for a big portion of the fight, as well as the multi-dotting, as well as that. This fight is like perfectly suited to a Shadow Priest. We are going to see once we get to Uu'nat, I mean, I almost guarantee it, but you never know. I almost guarantee that you're going to see the melee return for that fight. Right, there's a lot more benefit to those guys. So we can look at this fight and go, oh, Shadow Priest. But like this fight is tuned for Shadow Priest in such a ridiculous way that they are so perfectly suited to what they bring to the table in their little niches. Now they're already very strong. We all know that. They know they have nerfs incoming. If not, they're already live.
They're live. Yeah.
Yeah, they're live. They are aware. Blizzard is aware of it, but it just turns out the way this fight works really heavily favors Shadow Priest. And when we're looking at these outrageously difficult damage numbers that very few people in the guild in the world of World of Warcraft can actually produce, that's when every little scrap becomes more important. But that's not to say that it's all gone the Shadow Priest way. So we're looking at Limit, who are running 10. Methods comp changes has been really interesting through the day as well. They've switched between like 3 healing and then to 5 healing with 4 Disc Priests. I think that's where they went to towards the end. I don't know if they stuck with that. They've swapped comps a lot. We saw Just Wait switch over to a Prot Warrior. We saw them changing the tank from Scribe, who was tanking it as Arcane. They brought a Moonkin in at that point. Method's been much more flexible. Now, I didn't catch a lot of Limit's rating yesterday, whether they just stuck with this comp pretty much throughout the day. But Method have been much more open-minded about, okay, let's switch this and let's move this around. Let's bring in a Resto Shaman. Let's drop a Resto Shaman. Let's see what we could do with some Holy Paladin and see if we can find some sort of balancing act there. And it's not that's the situation we're in, where it's still a case of getting people that are more comfortable. The issue we have that's really important to this raid that makes it so different from BOD, like we were talking about with comps going into Jaina.
Yeah.
The difference is this time, we're not looking at a reset to make a difference here. That's a massive difference in what we're seeing in this raid. The guys are already geared on their ults. That they already have that. Next reset is not going to do anything. What they have is access to characters. A lot of characters that they can just swap in. They can drop, I don't want this 415, 417, let's say Rogue. Let's bring in my other 417 Shadow Priest, right?
Pop
so that's
Lighty's POV again.
Exactly. And in BOD, what were we looking at, Bay, is they didn't know what healer comp they were going to go with for Method, and Potter at one point was on like a 383 Shaman.
He switched so many times. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And they didn't have access to the gear to just be in the situation. This is a totally different, from a guild perspective, a different puzzle to solve.
Yeah.
Because now, instead of saying like we're kind of committed to these characters because these are the ones we chose to clear the raid earlier, so they have a lot more gear than our alts have right now, because it was a fresh reset, fresh gearing up process. This time, it's a case of we have a library of characters, which is what these guilds have. They have a whole wardrobe full of characters. Some of them have 5, 6 characters with massive amounts of AP, huge amounts of gear, and it's like we can mix and match and we can maximize as much as we possibly want to. Which brings us back to the design. The designers know that, the devs know that. Whoever designed the fight is fully aware of what the guys can produce. So okay, we're going to test your limits instead of you guys, because you can imagine this being slightly less tuned. It would have been dead this morning or yesterday, because the guys would have gone, oh, Shadow Priests are really powerful here. Let's bring 10 Shadow Priests forehead and just kill it, because it's tuned for everybody. This fight is not tuned for everybody right now. It will be eventually, but right now it's tuned for those guys who are able to throw literally everything at the game. Maximum characters, maximum class stacking, every single thing. And that's what's made it so much more interesting than I certainly thought it was going to be. I thought this fight was going to be garbage, like absolute trash. When I tested out the PTR, I hated this fight. But what we've seen is with the tuning and messing around, this is a new beast entirely, which is what I'm liking about it.
There is, I wanted to go back over to, we're still watching Lighty's POV here real quick for this poll to see what Limit gets up to right now. But so perspective wise, HP, Jaina, the end boss of Battle of Dazara lore, and barring some extra HP added here and there, like 7 million HP on the ice wall and just a little bit of HP on the Thanos ice block, Jaina has 140 million HP right now. She had a little bit more than that for the world first because her HP was cut by about 5%. But the boss here we're seeing, the Restless Cabal, has a overall total of 250-ish million HP. And yes, you are permanently quote-unquote cleaving, and you do have the Promise of Power buff giving you that extra damage, but that's to put in perspective on how the numerical amount is in compared to Jaina. There's a lot of HP going on here that they have to burn through while dealing with everything else. We're currently in the second relic activation right now with the stun orbs, where you will get pulled in directions and then do not want to get hit by these stun orbs. Not unlike, let's say Odin, but those floated around. These sit, and I imagine they probably spawn randomly every time you spawn them. which is,
I believe they do kind of target around players.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Yeah, and then they get sucked up like we just saw.
Yeah.
Because then what you said earlier, Bay, that's the cool thing, is the players are kind of choosing when to do that.
Yep.
So they're timing their transitions. And I want to be clear on how important this is. These timings of interrupts, I've seen interrupts delayed during pulls by 2 seconds. Like, because we have the what are they called? The abominations, the Eldritch abominations. That need to be interrupted. I've seen interrupts adjusted in some of the streams by just 2 seconds, because that makes the whole next minute and a half easier. And that's how tight it is in making sure that not only are they running through everything, they're being pulled in various directions. There's stun fields, there's AoE coming from everywhere, but also you need to be that precise with some of these mechanics in order to get this fight done, while remaining calm and dealing with it. Because obviously it's a very panicky environment to be in, because it's so much chaos.
Yep. It's hard to watch.
What is it?
What's up, Rich?
What is it that's causing the fight to escalate so much at the very end? I think that's the biggest question that I've kind of been receiving is, you're in this environment where obviously you're rotating through, making sure that you're hitting the Voidstone, the Trident of the Deep Ocean, and the Tempest Caller, and they're kind of picking and taking their choice, leaving that one towards the very end of the fight. But what is it that just makes everything escalate? Like that last 30%, that last 20% just looks so much more difficult than any other portion of the fight.
We're about to see it. They've got a really good pull here right now, actually. The thing about this is I don't know why the strat has evolved that you actually do the Tempest Caller last, because the Tempest Caller nerfs, I mean, maybe you have to get ahead of this, is the whole point that you were talking about earlier, Mike, is getting ahead of the encounter. Ooh, nice Blessing of Spell Warding to clear the bubbles. Very nice there. However, the issue that is coming into play here is that the Tempest Caller has roughly an 18-second overall debuff time. It's a 15-second channel with a 3-second debuff. The debuff reduces your damage done by 50%. And when it hits the last tick, it'll pandemic the 3 seconds, so it's 18 seconds in total. And you do that twice. So you have nearly 40 seconds of time when your raid is doing half DPS. And that must be why the Tempest Caller is last, because it's also AoEing the actual crap out of your raid. And if anyone ever falls below 25% health, they are death touched. And again, you have to do that rotation twice. The Voidstone pulling people in from across the room there.
Yeah, you can see what they're doing in order to line this up is they're staggering that debuff, because obviously a big part of it is that the bosses are stronger by this point.
Yeah.
And also the resources have run dry. You know what I mean? We're really running dry on resources by this point, because it's been such a long fight. You've had to deal with so many things going on. But as you can see, as they come down to the kill here, what they did is they triggered the first one at 25% on Fathul. They kind of let that happen, then let the Voices of Power build back up so they could put a lot of damage into Fathul and get him ready to kill. Like, they've got that in position now. He's ready to kill.
Yeah, he's sub 10%.
And now they're going to, because it doesn't matter. As long as they die together, it's fine. So they can plow into that while waiting for the perfect time to transition Zaxish, which is what they've done now. They've got through that. And this looks really healthy because they're dry on resources, but the bosses aren't going to really do anything now. They've used the last of their major abilities. So now it's about just being cool. You can see them gathering up now, trying to get that buff shared amongst as many people as possible. All they need to do now is stay calm and kill these together. This is looking incredibly good, by the way.
Just one tank. You don't need both tanks, but your solo tank on Fathul is going to be rough with the stat down, unless they're kiting him around in a way.
Yeah, he's trying as much as can to keep that going. Yeah, unfortunate, but again, it's one of those things when the bosses have gotten to their maximum strength, which they are at this point. It's literally like you can see how they rebalanced the DPS because Fathul was so far ahead. They switched over to the DPS to try and rebalance it out. And it's all about like trying to just survive this brutal damage. There's not much else going to happen to the raid at this point except keeping these tanks up while these bosses are brutal. But they're so close.
Yeah.
Oh, that's infuriating when you like that because you've got past most of the really difficult bits, which is dealing with all the relics. They've dealt with all that. That's all done and dusted. There's nothing mega going to happen to the raid at this point. They're getting the presence of powers are all building back up on the raid, which means they're ready to go completely hardcore on these guys until they have to deal with the ads.
Yep. Yeah, and I do want to touch on something that you're hearing from Preach a little bit when he was actually commentating over everything that's happening. thing. The boss is as strong as they're going to be. So the bosses are getting a stacking buff every time that you do go about using one of these relics. And I believe it's still 10%, right? On Mythic, it's 10%. So ultimately 30% by the end of the fight. Each boss will be buffed. And I feel like that gives an interesting dynamic, because when you initially see that you have to go through all of these and you have the choice, I almost think back to like Avatar, for example, when you would see, you would actually see during progression going, okay, let's instantly get into phase 2. Let's see how phase 2 feels. Let's get some practice. And then when finally they're done with phase 1, they get a clean phase 1, they drop down below. They have that practice. They have that intuition. They have everything gunning for them, all that instinct that they need to actually get the boss down, even though it was mathematically impossible, as they do say. With this one, I feel like you can't get that practice, right? Like, I feel like when you look at Tempest Caller, you'd be like, okay, well, if Tempest Caller is so difficult, why don't they just try it first? They're going to know which cooldowns that they're going to have, but Tempest Caller would be basically 20% weaker, correct? Like, you can't necessarily move them around as much and get valuable practice.
That's why I'm curious.
And your resources are different. Yeah, your resources are different as well.
That's the one thing I'm wondering about what Pieces did, because we're not really discerning information from them, because they are, dark horse in this race, right? They're not streaming, nothing's out there, no one's leaked any logs. We just have their comp. So doing the Tempest Caller twice in a row later in the fight, when they're both at 20% more damage, seems really strange, especially because how much AoE damage it's doing, and the fact maybe the Tempest Caller's passive is the problem, which I can double check about that one, which is the Relic's activated effect, which could very well be rough. It's called Storm Essence, and this will inflict nature damage to the nearest player from the I guess the platform every 2 seconds, and it increases in damage by 20% per strike. And this has the same effect of Annihilate, is what they've called the actual player effect, which is Death Touch. If you fall below 25% health, then it just zaps you, you die. So it kind of has that, I don't know what the Storm boss in the Temple of Sethralis is like, the soak mechanic it has. And the more you soak, the more damage it deals. And you have to rotate people through that. And I guess I don't want to deal with that throughout the whole fight. But
from what I could tell, they didn't consider it a big deal, to be honest. I heard some discussion on it.
Yeah.
Not trying myself, they didn't particularly consider it to be like a major thing. They just had healers swapping around and dealing with it and taking a couple. It was just something they had to deal with. I think it's more a case from guesswork, that it's just a case of we could handle this now, and then we can go into a relatively easy phase with people ready to go absolutely hardcore and burn this fight to the end. I think that's because it's not that difficult to deal with overall, although their damage is very, very heavy. Sure. I think that's just a consideration compared to the other. It's more a case of the other two are a little bit more difficult to handle, and therefore getting them out of the way and then moving towards the easier one towards the end. It's probably how it's ended up there.
I also saw every single attempt I saw from Limit as well, like they have the same relic order. I feel like the relic order is something that all the guilds have somewhat settled on. Pieces, obviously, I don't have any intel as to what they did relic wise, but I've always seen that Tempest Caller being the last one triggered, at least by the end of day yesterday with Limit and all the attempts that I watched of them today. So I do feel like this is the norm right now, and I feel like we're going to continue to see that for the most part. That doesn't seem to be one of the tuning knobs. We've seen healers kind of be the tuning knob right now, which is a pretty method thing to do. I feel like more times than not, just be trying to tweak the amount of healers that they do bring. I'm not sure if maybe that's Josh a little bit. When you look at Pieces, maybe that wasn't the tuning knob. Now that Josh is gone, maybe that's why they had the success. I don't know, Josh. I don't know. I'm just saying. I can't wait. I hope they record.
I'm not jumping into that.
Yeah.
Oh man, I like poking at Josh, man. I like poking at Josh. I got to do it a little bit.
Chat tried to get me, but I'm aware of the joke. All right, chat. You can't get.
Wait,
that.
what's the? Oh, is it when they're saying Josh was the problem? Is that a joke?
There is a bit of back and forth between Pieces. I don't know who in Pieces directly and Josh because of a challenge that Josh issued. If you want to look at it, you're totally going to look at it, Rich. But it's the
okay.
On the I can put it in our group.
Yeah, well, so I honestly one of my favorite things was when basically right after Jaina went down, I'm pretty sure Josh like sent all of the information that he had on Jaina to Pieces. Wasn't that something that everybody was saying that like he was sending the spreadsheet to them and everything?
Pretty sure
like
that wasn't a secret. He did it on stream.
Yeah. So
it was hidden.
I just wanted to make sure I was right,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like one of those things where I feel like there is kind of a friendly level between these guys, like their old guild mates. So he sent all that information over to them. I'm excited for Pieces. Like, this is a very easy guild to cheer for. And they have that same thing that Limit had, that mystery. We don't really know what they're up to. They could right now be like 1% on Uu'nat, and we would not be the wiser.
I hope we shouldn't discount them. They were world fourth in BOD. Like, this is not a guild that came from like 50th or something like that. They've been chomping at the heels for a little while now, and now they've seen. And hopefully, the information I was given is correct. Is that they looked at what was going to happen here. They looked at people being a bit blasé about this raid. Certainly, the limited method card, thinking, it's going to be a small, fun raid to go for. And it's like, no, we're having this now, and this is our moment. And if that is to be believed, it's what's going to make the next tier even more special.
Right.
And let alone however this feels, is to have more hands in that fight.
Two bosses to 8, but I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but also just think about what they could have done. I mean, the big thing was they were doing everything that they managed to do in BOD, raiding like normal people. Like they basically were raiding somewhat normal raid hours. Yes, they were Mythic Guild raid hours, but they were somewhat normal hours. They were hours that, a lot of us have probably raided in the past, and they didn't necessarily take off from work or anything like that we hear about these progression guilds needing to do. Maybe they have a few days off for this one. Maybe they were like, you know what? It's only 2 bosses. Maybe we take a day or 2 off. Maybe we do just go absolutely ham. And you find yourself in that scenario. We know that they have the skill. The missing factor was the time, and now they may have the time as well. So I'm excited to see them do well. And also, I like the idea of it not only being a 2-horse race. I like the idea of the playing field being very competitive, and nobody's been able to dethrone Method since all of the streaming has started, which is very exciting to watch for Method, but also let's see what Pieces can ultimately do in this race. And
I was going to give a quick little shout out here to remind everybody that if you want to sort of soak up, because the show is only going to be live for roughly about 2 hours or so after each of the main nights for a certain amount of time. We're not really sure yet. But obviously,
next 8 weeks, probably.
Please, Rich, please.
Uu'nat's going down for 2 months.
If you go to method.gg and then hit up the raid progress section, as with every single tier, you can keep up to date with all of the major comeuppances. They're going to be putting the highlights, like the limit wipe we just had. Just got posted a while ago. The one from Method's POV earlier today as well is also posted. So you can keep up to date with everything in the official thread. You got the full-on Pieces versus Restless Cabal raid comp for the world first there. So even though they're, again, trolling a little bit with the NAs here going in, I don't know what that's about, but everything's over there on method.gg and then /raid progress.
Yeah, it's always fun to kind of stay updated. And I do, I remember, I guess it was Emerald Nightmare, right? When all of a sudden you're really excited to see everything happen, and Xavius just goes down really quickly, and a lot of us felt like we kind of missed it, and that part of the race. There was a question whether or not Uu'nat was going to be tuned that way, and now definitely don't feel like that's the case, which is exciting. Like we have a real race on our hands. I think we're going to be spending at least 4 days on it. I think too, even I think Method's range of what they assumed it was going to be was something in the area of, we're either going to go in and we're going to knock it out of the park really quickly, or maybe a 4-day tier, which is a decent amount of time for 2 bosses.
Yeah, for the top guys in the world, that's a decent amount of time. That is a really good, decent amount of time, and it's something that's going to keep everybody else busy for quite some time. As again, because it's not an important thing to get done, but you can certainly get working on it. I don't think people should be too concerned about burning out if they're still working on Jaina. We've got a couple of months with this, and the gear is good, but it's not, nothing life-changing is going to come from this. This is a great challenge to overcome. I feel like Blizzard will change this fight. Maybe in a week or so or something like that. They'll start turning it down from where they want it to be, so it's more accessible for the rest of the guilds that are finally clearing Jaina. But we are going to see that. I think they've purposely designed it as it is, just for this little niche. And hopefully they kind of let the race. We don't want to see any mid-week changes, so let it happen at resets and things like that. But hopefully we could just keep seeing. We want to see what Uu'nat's like. We've seen this fight and it looks great. We do want to see what is Uu'nat like, because we know we've got things like Grand Conjunction in there, which is everybody's favorite mechanic, and how that's going to play out and how difficult that's going to be with an ever-changing rune shape, which is something to look forward to as well.
I hope it doesn't get changed for like 2 weeks, honestly. Just to be safe. I hope it doesn't get changed for 2 weeks. I hope we just see a race happen, and then all of a sudden we'll see it slow down a little, or we'll see it get a little bit easier. We'll see more and more guilds having that fighting chance against it. But right now, this is a tough cookie. It's a really tough nut to crack, and that's exciting. And I think that having a trend where not only are the rewards more interesting in here, but this is a raid made for raiders. This mythic raid tier is made for the best of the best. Mm-hmm. It's a two-tier raid where the rewards are really cool, but they're not make or break, right? Like you can still get this gear elsewhere. Like this is not about gear at all. This is an actual test of skill. That feels really good, and it feels unique, and it doesn't happen very often. I would love to see more and more of these two boss tiers, these small little tiers, these 3 boss tiers, whatever it is. But we have to do it. We have to make the predictions right now. How long do you think it's going to take?
Oh,
well, I wanted to sort of dovetail onto what Mike said about time and the amount of time it puts in. Like if it's 4 days or 4 or 5 days, right? Keyword for the top guilds to sort of break through a 2-boss raid tier. Sure. All right. Again, Hellia was about 3 days, but that's not a normal raid day for most people. Right? I don't know what your raid schedule is like compared to mine, Mike, but we put like 3.5 hours in on a raid night, right?
I've been on a break for about 4 weeks or so.
Well, when you weren't in Blizzard jail, you a regular raid night it's like
3 nights a week,
hours.
About 4.5 hours.
Okay,
My guild does
go.
raid longer than I would accept usual.
But you wouldn't
Creatures
put
on
in
a long vacation upstate.
Yeah.
Sekiro came out. That's all it was.
Yeah.
But the amount of time that the top guilds put into this, that's the one they want to drive home here, is that Method just put in about 12 hours? 14 in BOD some days?
It's pretty standard for them on progress days.
They put in more time in a week than some guilds do in a day. So that's why they are, when they break their 4 days, that's a month worth of raiding time in sort of a standard environment, or a more
even more, because think about effective time, right? I'll be completely honest. Like I've raided for a very long time. I'm actually currently not raiding besides an LFR. If you guys want to join my LFR guild, we'll talk to you guys soon. But I mean, one of the main reasons, like, you got to look at that time differently is how many guilds have we been in, guys, where Timmy's got to take a 30-minute bathroom break out of nowhere, and then you're waiting for Timmy to clean up, and then all of a sudden somebody else needs to go for a bathroom break. Somebody's food gets there. The focus level's just not there. Every guild's different,
right?
But I was in. I feel like most guilds that I was in, maybe 4 hours per raid night, 3 raid nights a week. Out of 4 hours, how many solid attempts do we get in? It's a lot less than you're going to see these top guilds get in the amount of time that they do, and then also the time that they're not pulling. They have these great minds actually going, okay, this is how we're going to get the most bang for our buck in these attempts. This is what we need to tune.
Oh, Scripe's not done raiding. Just because the streams are off and they're not actually in the game, Scripe isn't done raiding. He's still raiding. He will raid in his sleep and wake up, and he's still in the raid. Just put that out there. He's not done raiding.
Plot twist, boys. We've just seen some Vantus runes used.
Oh, did Limit pop Vantus runes?
Not everybody.
Oh.
Maybe our characters, they're pretty sure they don't need for Uu'nat.
Honestly, make some of the Shadow Priests pop Vantus runes. That seems great. You're not gonna bring that many Shadow Priests to Uu'nat, at least to our knowledge right now.
No, I don't think so. I think the melee's like chomping at the bit. Like, my time is coming. My time is coming any moment now.
They're just running around right now, probably just doing some M+, hoping for some sockets, hoping for some Titan.
Oh, well, they're currently playing their alt Shadow Priest.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Just in case.
I don't want to play my Shadow Priest.
Yeah.
Let me in. I want to come in. The Warriors are thirsty.
We can pop back into Lighty's POV here in just a little bit once they get a little past what we've already seen before. Because I know someone else chomping at the bit is Nobbel to bring in. I mean, we opened the stream today with richly excited about tentacles, and Mr. Tentacle himself apparently will be joining us shortly. So we can.
I'm pretty sure, not to speak for Nobbel, but I don't think we're supposed to call him that. I don't think we're allowed to call him Mr. Tentacle himself.
can confirm he prefers to be called Senor Tentacles.
Ah!
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but there are a lot that I want to know. I feel like we were talking about some of the themes that actually are starting to happen in this expansion inside of this raid a long time ago. You know, you go all the way back, like it has been building up to this moment. Man, I got to be careful with my diction now when we're after we talked about all these tentacles. Like, there's been so much build up to this moment, and finally, I feel like we are getting to that fulmination. It's coming to fruition right now. It's coalescing.
I'll take it. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Take it where we can get it. Right. I do think there a lot to talk about as to what this really does for the story of the game, and also I feel like we're kind of in a fulcrum shift right now for the expansion with these few bosses that we just got.
It's very strange because this being like the half tier of Battle of Dazara lore, and we know 8.2 is on the PTR right now. We know the Heart of Azeroth 2.0 changes are coming. We know the new Essence system is coming, which Mike and I have already thought about. This show is not for that.
We didn't fight.
We did it. We had a little scuffle. At least I did.
I love how everybody's first reaction when stuff like that comes out is just to hit up Mike. That was the first thing.
My private Twitter feed was just like, so.
Yeah, no, I definitely did. That was me.
No, both of you did. Like, both of you two did.
Rich slid into the DMs too. Come on.
My DM feed was pretty hype after the essences came out. They were like, so. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
You were actually the only person I hit up to talk about it. I didn't really talk to anyone else.
Yeah.
Interesting conversation it was.
Yeah. I summed it up in 2 words. My feelings about it.
Brief.
I actually think we might talk about 8.2 maybe a little bit later on, but now we definitely focus on everything going on in Crucible of Storms. I haven't really gotten your guys' opinion on the gear. I actually saw somebody talking about like the way that it affects PvP. Sure. I mean, there is kind of an idea right now where you're getting a lot of bubbles, you're getting a lot of heals, you're getting a lot of these effects that are going to affect PvP. But besides that, let's look at it just for a PvE standpoint right now, because the PvP thing's a much bigger discussion.
Yeah, I'm gonna swap back over to ladies POV again while we discuss to see what they're at right now. Yeah,
for sure. Let's take a look at that. Let's jump back inside the cockpit.
Because you're talking you're talking about the gear right now. We've already seen hotfix nerfs, I think, on certain things already, even though a lot of people when we first saw them were like, that was
it's actually been through a few iterations.
Yeah.
I looked at it when it was released and went on the PTR and tested a lot of the gear. It was very disappointing in its effect at first. Like the idea of this curse was really good. To bring in more interesting gear and because Blizzard's aware their gear system is kind of boring for the most part. A lot of it is just like it has haste mastery or crit, so many slots just carry that style of itemization, and it's just not particularly interesting. And so they're aware of that, and they're trying to make gear more interesting, which is thumbs up from everybody. Looking at the gear initially when it first came out, it was a little disappointing. There was not much in terms of visual effects. The actual power and strength of the items was quite low. And it definitely raised concerns in the eyes of not just myself, but many people. Is like, well, there's not going to be much point in raiding the Crucible of Storms for this gear. It's not that interesting. It's not that good. And it's about, it's on par with BOD gear. And some of it only is really good for some classes. Some of it is very disappointing for some classes. Then they buffed it because obviously they don't want a raid that's kind of dead on arrival just because of its loot. Like, let's go and kill it once and never go back because it's just not worthwhile for a lot of people.
We did think that at first, yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely did, and logically so. It was that way. Like some classes were looking at the itemization there and going, I want to kill the boss. Oh,
interrupt issue. It looked like oof.
Just press kick.
Those things explode.
They do the splody. Yeah, but then they buffed it and they're going in a good direction with it, which is how I want to take it. Like some of it is very powerful, some of it is very strong, similar to the Essence system. Some of it is very powerful. How much does it affect your gameplay is always questionable from player to player. But I like the idea that they're saying legs don't have to be boring, wrists don't have to be boring. They don't have to be just stats. That's it. Raw stats from start to finish. And that's what's the best thing about the whole thing is them saying, let's do something with a pair of legs.
And thank goodness. I think BFA right now, I've been talking about it quite a bit. Like I really do problems when you actually do look at a lot of the rewards, and this noted change is fantastic. And I think a lot of the criticisms that do come, they're warranted. I understand why some people aren't going to be as excited about some of these effects, but when you look thematically at how these bosses are designed, it makes sense for these to be the rewards that you get. And in the future, I feel like this is setting up for a system that's much more enjoyable than a lot of the rewards that we typically do get in the game. And I want to see more like this as far as that's concerned. And I also like the fact right now that people are leaning towards Shadow Priest, for example. Like when you look at this fight and you look at Shadow Priest and you look at their toolkit and you go, this is the Shadow Priest fight. Like, why would you not want to play a Shadow Priest? You basically hang out and you're execute the entire time because of Twist of Fate. You're getting to multi-dot. Like, this is the Shadow Priest fight. And also, like, Vampiric's pretty strong here as well. I want to feel that more often. I really do. Like, I want to feel non-homogenized kits across classes. And especially when you get into a raid that's much larger in scale as far as bosses are concerned, and you have 10 12 boss fights, and you sit there as I remember back in the day, like raiding on a warlock and being like, I can't wait until we get to this boss because this is when I just destroy the meter. I will shred face on this entire fight. This is the warlock fight. I like that, and we have that again. I mean,
Blizzard likes that too.
They do.
Yeah, and I think that it's a good thing. Like, I think it's a really good thing. And we're seeing classes that, like, Shadow Priest is strong here and it's not strong in the MDI, right? Like, I think that's good. I think that's good. Yeah, rogues are crazy strong right now in MDI. Like, I think that something like that is a step in the right direction, but I want to hear what you guys think about that as well. Like, Bay, how do you feel about one class in particular shining on this first encounter?
Well, I am a melee player. I did my World of Warcraft mains tweet, and it was vanilla Resto Druid, and then it's been melee since Burning Crusade, which I tagline as I play melee. So it's funny to see those, and that's always the parts of raids that always get to me, is that, oh, this is a ranged fight. It's like some of the fights that come back, it's like the Mithrax syndrome. How many melee can you have in this fight? Oh, 3. Well, we don't have a warrior, so we need to bring the buff, and we need to bring a Demon Hunter for the other required fun, engaging, amazing mechanic, the debuff. And then maybe a rogue? Anyone else? No? All right.
DK. I like DKs.
Well, you can have 3, Mike. You can have 3. Are grips important? Then maybe you can bring 4. All right, Mecha Torque. But yeah. So it's funny to see.
And survival hunters are getting at least 2 of those spots.
Hey, don't do that. But I think
yeah, go on.
No, there's way too many boss fights that do just work if you're ranged, right? One of the other mechanics of this fight too is the soaks that are bouncing back and forth. They're going to spawn under players, so you're ranged most likely, and they're going to bounce towards other players, your tanks. And then you saw the tanks soaking a lot of those, I don't know what they're called, the bouncing little void zone thingies that you have to then soak. And it's way easier if your tanks are already taking the bosses and getting healed to have them soak what they're already doing, because you're not going to have your melee do that, because that's just moving healing off of your tanks. So just bring range. Don't need to bring any melee. And certain fights do just go into that. Now, of course, once this gets tuned down a little bit more, like what Mike said earlier, but right now it's tuned for the top of the pack. It'll definitely get tweaked down where the damage will not be as ridiculous. Their HP will go down a little bit, and then more and more people will then be able to funnel through with let's kind
of blow it out a little bit, and let's say that you have, and obviously there have been a lot of things that cause this really not to happen as much in recent history, but let's say that you have a scenario where the second boss in this raid, or when you get into a much larger raid, there's a boss where melee have that same opportunity. Like, do you like design like that? Like, yeah, okay, because I think that's an important thing to work, or important thing to ask, because if you're just going through all the range characters and they all just have their day in the sun, great, but what happens to a melee player? Like, I think that that's the big thing. Like, even when you like certain toolkits being strong in like a dungeon environment, for example, when does it go too far? And you look at mages being able to spell steal something, for example, in the first iteration of MDIs, and they're running through Blackrock Hole and they're able to do 8 gajillion DPS. Is that too far? Is that too far in class identity? You look at a warlock who's able to enslave, I forget what they were actually called, but they dropped the green bubbles, which basically gave you lust. Is that too
the Fell
far?
Hunter bros. Fell Guard, guys.
So the thing is there's always that question of what does create this powerful class envy, this desire to play other things? What allows you to feel like a legend when you're inside of that environment with that class and to really yearn to play that fight? And then what takes a step over? Like what is a little bit too far? And on this, would you say Shadow Priests are too powerful? Do you think that it does go too far in this instance?
Mike, you take that, and then we're bringing Nobbel in after this.
Okay, I'm going to say no, because what we're looking at is so not representative of the player base. It's so far away from what the rest, even myself and anybody else, is really going to be dealing with on this fight. It's not realistic to compare it to anything. This is a very, very one-off scenario we're looking at here that's been done intentionally. Now, that's not saying that we haven't had similar scenarios in the past which were probably unintentional. Ascendant Council back in Kata, where there was just, you could not... I think they had one rogue, something like that. Like, it just didn't work. Stonewall Blockade kind of fell into that situation as well, where it was just so much better to have ranged multi-dotters there because of the nature of the fight. But class stacking, and let me compare it. I've just give you 2 examples of where it went wrong. But to make it different than that, I want to look at a fight like Blast Furnace, where Blast Furnace required a really balanced, healthy-looking raid to get right. And that's because the fight was designed around very minor tasks being accomplished by different types of play. You needed the melee to be dealing with things like interrupts and carrying bombs and dealing with all these scenarios in a very small pocket of the fight, where you needed the range being able to cross over each other and dealing DPS to larger adds at the same time as the melee are dealing with that, while you're dealing with Shadow Priests who are mind controlling, or priests in general, and tanks moving adds across the fight. And that's when I see it go really well, when you have a fight like that has so many rich, interesting little elements that can't be done by just a ranged comp. That either can't be done by a heavy melee comp or anything like that. It's all about making the fight healthy and balanced. And we kind of saw that as well with other fights, because it doesn't have to be a simple fight. Like Blackhand was kind of the same thing as well. We had some really healthy raid setups there where people felt very strong because they allowed, like Rich was saying, these like moments of glory for your class, where you had the rogues are able to do a ton of kiting, hunters are able to manipulate how the ads are doing and bait certain things into certain areas, and they can use their mobility to that effect. And that's when it all comes to strengths of what the classes bring to it. Now, we're a little bit reduced in BFA in terms of variety and niche abilities that some of the classes have. They've trimmed that away, and we know they're going to start bringing that back probably in 9.0. But it is important to have those moments where you are thinking, I can't wait for that fight because my class can do something really cool there.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to be one class focus, is my point here. It doesn't have to be, this is the Warlock fight, this is the Moonkin fight, this is the Warrior fight, blah, 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 blah. There are tons of examples out there of where lots and lots of different people have all looked forward to the same fight because that fight has really good elements in it. But it also has to be pointed out, making that is supremely difficult because that has to be usually a really complex, difficult fight, like Siegebreaker Black Fuse, which had the platforms with people going off doing individual tasks. You then got people dealing with drill bits and kiting things and doing all that, where they're looking at their skills and abilities to make a difference that isn't just DPS the target dummy or something like that, right? Or it really caters to that. This fight does obviously very heavily favor Shadow Priests and Warlocks in its current iteration, but I don't think it's a great example because this is so finite, it's so tiny in the lifespan of what we're going to see here, that I think it's literally been made because the developers knew exactly what the guys were going to throw at this fight, so they worked around that intentionally. Because it's not, if we really think about it, it caters to Shadow Priests this fight, but not in a very interesting way. They're just multi-dotting, right? They're not doing anything they wouldn't ordinarily do. It's not like they're displaying some incredible Shadow Priest ability here. It's just the fact that the nature of the fight is beneficial towards them.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say they're doing anything.
Yeah, the ad though, how it interacts with Twist of Fate is so I like that. I do like that because when you do actually look at the visage, it acts very differently than you typically see an ad function, right? Like usually when you see Twist of Fate being really strong, like Twist of Fate's not something incredibly new, right? And Twist of Fate's been strong in the past. Usually when it's strong, it's when you can just tap on something that's already dying. You know you're going to have the buff up for its duration. You're going to get that extra damage. The way that the visages actually work is you keep them at low health. So you're multi-dotting something that's going to keep that buff going the entirety of the time. It's not just high uptime, it's permanent uptime based off of that visage. So I think that that's cool. I actually do think that that's cool because it's something that we don't get very frequently. But I think the visage period is just a cool take on what it means to have an ad inside of a fight.
And we have seen them being controlled, by the way. So they obviously the Shadow Priestess definitely keeping Twist of Fate up, but we have seen a few instances where they've said leave the visage alone because we actually need to let it heal so we can kill it. So it's because obviously the visage regenerates faster and faster the longer it's not at full health to get back to full health. So it'll keep fighting against you, constantly dotting it up until eventually it'll heal up. And we have seen them say leave it alone for a while because we actually need to let it heal up, kill it so it's then not a problem for a while we deal with something else. But overall, I mean, it's a nitpicky thing, but overall it is it's an extreme buff, which just involves leaving a dot up on it. I mean, we can look at any point of view where they're just throwing Shadow Word Pain on it or whatever. They're just hoping for that to happen.
Well, I think the other things we've brought up too is that you can look at other fights that play into certain roles, right? Because you have the mind controls, the stun potential, and the master spells on, say, Jaina for Shadow Priest, if we're still talking about them. But then on this fight too, why Warlock and Shadow Priest are so good is they can dispel themselves or other people when there's a dispellable reason that has to be sort of teeter-tottered back around with promise of power, you're having it on or having it off. So there's a couple little things there that play into it, not just in the DPS role, on top of the visage with the Twist of Fate. But
we're not going to decide on a name, are we? Visage.
Yes.
We're all saying the same thing, just with our own little spin.
I'm trying to bring in the extra accent so as we can segue to bring in our other guest for the second half of the show.
Oh, don't let him say it.
I can't wait to hear it.
Can we do that? Can we get... let me bring this up.
Oh, I have to do it.
No, he's here.
I have to do it?
He should be able to just join in. I will bring up the slide for the show, and let me see if I get in here, you crazy man.
Visage.
Yeah, exactly. How does Nobbel say it?
Does it work? Hello?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hello, everyone.
What did you want me to say now? Sorry,
how do you say
I
visage?
Yashiraj.
No, that's...
No, other one. What were you talking about? Visage? What?
There we go. That was
Visage. There you go. Sorry, I'm sitting here for like 20 minutes and I'm listening like, yeah, Ray's really well designed, except, you only got to bring ranged in there. Melee don't really have a spot. I'm just thinking to my poor paladin.
Yep.
Like, yeah, you're right, man.
Well, see,
what exactly are you tackling it, Nobbel on Mythic? What is that?
I'm not one to usually.
Excuse me. Right now, in this moment, Mr. Timeout, I am further in progression than you are. So
how do you know?
When are you tackling it, Mythic?
My ankle monitor is off, sir. I am free. I am a free man.
Yeah. I was there first, though.
Let's get into the rough.
Actually, I was on the PTR.
Oh wow. Okay, I'm usually not one to question any tentacles getting thrown at me, but why are we getting these tentacles now? I'm not one to typically ask that question. I just take what I'm given. But as of right now, why are the tentacles just springing up in BFA Nobbel?
As of right now, do you want the full version, like going back to the dawn of creation, or do you want the right now version?
I want the whole thing, baby.
I want the whole thing.
Right.
I mean...
Because I don't know why we're here at all.
How much time do we got?
Yeah. In the beginning, there was light and there was void. And they crashed together and the physical universe came to be. In the physical universe, we had the Titans. You might remember them from Argus. They were cruising around the galaxy, bringing order to the universe, waking up their fellow Titans. But you also had the Void Lords. They were looking at the Titans and they were envious of their power. And they were like, how are we going to deal with this? We kind of want to consume the universe. We want to destroy it all. And their first plan was to corrupt a Titan, right? They tried to corrupt these beautiful beings, but they found out that when they're awake and when they're active, they're not really corruptible. So instead, they were like, we're going to go for the slumbering ones, the ones that are still sleeping inside the planet. So they pooled the powers together. They shot out these entities called the Old Gods into the physical universe. And wherever they crash landed, they hoped that there was like a slumbering Titan spirit. Wouldn't you know it, on the beautiful planet of Azeroth, there is indeed a slumbering Titan spirit. Those old gods, their tendrils, they burrowed deeply to the spirits. They corrupted the planets, and they were having a jolly good time. The planet was covered with the old gods, the Black Empires, they called it. And they were having a jolly good time until the Pantheon showed up, and they were like, now we could just destroy the planet and call it a day, but that's a little bit of a waste, right? It's a little bit of a waste. Sorry?
Was that Algalon?
Not yet.
No, we'll get there. I'll explain Algalon. The Titans, you remember Argus, right? Where you were fighting with like Argus and the Pantheon. The big red guy, scary, with a scythe.
When's Algalon?
Right, so the Titans, they show up on the planet and they're like, we're not going to destroy them. We're going to give this planet a little chance. So instead of just ripping out all these old gods, they decided to imprison them because they tried ripping one of them and that didn't work out too well. It was like this massive wound, turned into the Well of Eternity. So the other ones were imprisoned, right? But to safeguard the planet, to keep an eye on things, they also made sure that Algalon kept an eye on the planet. And in case that the old gods became too much of a trouble and the world had to be purged, then Algalon would come down and be like, yeah, okay, I'll hit the button and then the planet would be purged. But we stopped that, thankfully.
Okay.
That's where Algalon comes in. So fast forward to these days to keep it a little bit close to home, right? The whole Crucible of Storms raid is pretty much like a bridge into 8.2. And the idea is that just before the raid, we got a little quest line in which we find out that the Naga, who are minions, well, not minions, but they're allies with N'Zoth, and they're going after these powerful artifacts. One of them, Zalatov, is the artifact that Shadow Priest party with in Legion. And if you're not
no one's going to know what that name means. Use her real name.
Naifu Waifu?
Thank you.
Sarah?
I had to think there's what are you talking about? Does she
saying it
have
wrong, by
another
the
name?
way.
I didn't know what he meant. I actually thought he just wasn't paying attention. I actually thought the page just wasn't paying attention. Talking about, okay, Naifu Waifu.
Yeah. You can say Zalataf.
Our Naifu Waifu.
No one's going to know who that is. You say Naifu, you're like, that's right.
That beautiful, sexy voice that was whispering in my ear all expansion. So she's back, right? And if you're not a Shadow Priest, you just find it there. If you are a Shadow Priest, you take it with you. And you might remember that when Sargeras stabbed the planets, everybody got together with the artifacts and they drained it, right? Zalatov didn't like that. She became a little bit sleepy because of that. So we first empower her, and then she puts us on her path. And she explains that the Naga, they're busy with this massive ritual. They want to cleanse the world of all non-believers. And they're using 3 relics, artifacts of power to do so. The stone, the crown, and the tridents. We go about, we gather those, and we bring them to the Crucible Storms. You might wonder to yourself, is that really a good idea? No, it's not, but whatever, we're dumb. We bring those relics there, and behold, there is a tentacle of N'Zoth. And he's like, ooh, hero. Why, thank you for these beautiful artifacts. Let me just touch your mind for a little bit. Feel my tentacle, and go out. Just enjoy my gift. I'll see you next week when the raid opens up. And that's what happened.
So let me get this straight. So it starts out, and we got these dudes, and they're trying to corrupt a beauty, but she's not having it. So then they just go and they try to find all of the beauties that are asleep, and they send out their tentacles. And then we get into a scenario where it's just a guessing game. Eventually, they're hoping that they find somebody that is going to fall for their shit. Then we get into a scenario where we talk to the wrong girl, but she's drained. And then all of a sudden, we listen to her, and it's we bring the artifacts, we bring her these presents, and it's a huge trap.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like a test. It's like, come at me, bro. N'Zoth isn't too worried about us, right? He isn't too worried. He's just testing us, testing the waters. That's also where you do the fights in the Crucible. They're like, N'Zoth, they're not worthy, or N'Zoth, they are worthy. And like I said, it's kind of all flowing into 8.2. Like the old gods, we faced them before. We faced Kafun before, we faced Yaxaran before. and now N'Zoth is rising. He's breaking out of his prison. That sword inside of Azeroth didn't do too well for their prison, so he's trying to break out. And he's kind of testing the waters with us, and he's trying to lure us in and be like, yeah, come on, heroes, come on down. You're the ones who are going to be the ones to let me out. Yeah.
Is it all our fault that N'Zoth gets free, or is it kind of just because of the stuff that was set in motion, because of just the stabby of the sword? Like, how much does this raid and the actions that happen in Crucible of the Storms, how much are we accountable for the fact that N'Zoth is...
Well, part of it is it because we're really dumb and we just listen to Zolotov. But I think that there's also a little bit of old god manipulation going on, because at the end of the raid, if you pick up the blade, Zolotov, which is now empty, like the girl that was inside, she has a body now and she's out of here. But if you pick up the blade, if you're a Horde member, you suddenly feel compelled to bring it to the Banshee Queen. Like, just bring the blade to the Banshee Queen, why not? And as the Alliance, you find like this echo, and you tell Enduin, like, look, don't want to alarm you, but Sylvanas might have Zolotov in her possession. N'Zoth mentioned something about her using it as a compass. I don't know, but I feel like the next patch is on the horizon, and I kind of feel that Zolotov has a part to play.
Okay. And I do kind of want to ask, and this is probably a loaded question. I'm not sure. It could not be a loaded question. Do we feel like... Does any of that old god manipulation potentially have to deal with Azerite?
It kind of depends how much you want to go into 8.2 spoilers. But the idea that's Azerite itself has been infected with old god-esque kind of deal, like that's been floating around since the start.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that come to play yet. But our actions with Azerites, we're doing our best.
Okay.
That's all I want to say.
I kind of love the fact that, you know, I know a lot of people like don't really Azerite gear, but I kind of like love if Azerite gear in the story is actually evil too. Like, it's like, yeah, we
just
really
turns against you, yeah. Like, oh my god,
evil. It's like, oh my god, the whole expansion makes sense now. This is great. So we'll have to see if that comes. Yeah, right.
That's what
like
I guess, toxic.
It's so very nice to go focus on the tentacles and the old god stuff rather than the faction conflict. It's so nice.
Wait, is this the knife? That's what she looks like now?
Yes, I was bringing up her model.
I've done this.
Yeah.
Stab.
Yeah, basically in the quest line where you pick up these relics, the stone one has like this old god worshipper lady there, and Zolotov is like, ha ha ha, she believes she can open the stone. Yeah, I don't think so. So we kill her, and then Zolotov is like, oh, that's mine, and she takes the body, and then she whispers to you like, hey hero, don't you like my new body? And you're like, yes, come on, bring these relics for me here.
I like how Bay already knew that he was looking for the emote.
I was
kiss.
looking for kiss. Yeah,
like he did that so well. Like he's been on that wow head character.
And now he's
model
drowning her though. Like
I'm not.
He's
drowning.
taking us on a weird road.
Wow, but how much have you played with this before? Be honest now.
What the character modeler? Nah, I had to actually find. So you look up Xalatath on Wowhead, and there are 17 different ones. So I was like, which one is just the model that I could bring up on screen for B-roll? It's like 90 of them. I don't want the blade. I wanted the new model. So I had to dive through Wowhead over here to find it.
Sure, Ben.
Yeah. I had no idea where it was.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's weird though that it's bookmarked at the top of your browser. That's weird.
How do you see my browser, Mike?
I see everything, Bay.
Okay. Let's go weird.
I'm not gonna lie. This is a little bit off topic, but I will ask this question while we're here because obviously everybody who's here makes content. Everybody here who's here streams. Have you ever had an awkward bookmark pop up on stream? Like you just go to the browser and it's like, oh,
Mike does all the time. He doesn't hide his Mike. Put your toolbar on the monitor you're not showing to your stream, you actual mad lad.
What? You don't think?
What have you been showing?
You think people are surprised that I go to websites like YouTube, PayPal?
Yeah, exactly.
Good job, Sherlock. You managed to crack it. Amazon as well. I'm a real rebel.
How to exploit in WoW and not get caught.
Yeah,
how many potions
that's a weird
is too many?
bookmark.
.com.
All right.
Wait, Mike, why do
my PC is so vanilla that I really don't care. It's fine.
Oh, I was gonna make a Noxic reference, but damn, That's why I saw.
You'd have to go far and wide to find something sneaky. You might find Origin installed. That's pretty spooky.
Ooh.
All right. So speaking of Origins, we already talked about some actually caused this raid that caused Crucible to storm. So we talk about what's coming up next. How do you feel as somebody who cares about lore, obviously a lot, Nobbel, when we see the gear itself, the rewards itself, so thematically impacted by what Crucible of Storms offer? Is that something that's like exciting for you as somebody who cares about lore?
Not so much from a story point of view, but I do like it from a gameplay kind of view. I like the whole idea of sacrifice and reward in the raid itself. And I like the idea of first these relics that we bring there are turned against us, but we overcome them and we can use them in the next fight to our own advantage. Or wipe it if you're my raid team. But yeah, I really, really like it. Like I said, the only thing that really disappoints me about the Crucible is that it's so ranged heavy at this point.
For the first boss.
Even in our team.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, then again, we are very, very casual, so don't take my word as like, yeah, this is mythic raiding kind of style, but it just feels like as a range. I even swapped the Hunter for the first boss. It's easier to interrupt. It's easier to soak the little pools that pop around. Yeah, that's the only thing.
I've never switched. Like I'm always a shaman main, always, and that's because Big Daddy Thrall compels me to do so. Where's Thrall been? Tell us everything about Thrall, Nobbel.
Oh no.
Again, do you want to go into 8.2 things or not?
Take us to before the movie.
Before the movie, oh my! I can blow your mind right now. The movie is an alternate reality, and alternate realities are amazing. There are things that happen there that don't happen in the main universe, and it adds like a story upon a story.
Is this sacrilege? I feel like this. The WoW movie is the first and only time I've ever left a theater.
What?
Oh, really?
What?
Wow.
I got so angry. No, there were like a lot of things that led to it, and I ended up going back. I ended up going back and watching it again, which I regretted. But I did end up watching the entire movie. But I wasn't. I don't think I've ever talked to you about this. Now, did we talk about this ever? How did you feel about the movie? Did you like the movie?
This is completely off topic. I love how they brought the Warcraft universe to life. Like I loved seeing Stormwind and everything on screen. The story itself, it says a lot when the orcs have more emotion than the human.
Yeah,
I think that's the best way to summarize it.
I was actually really fortunate enough, and I enjoyed my time out there. I got to go to the premiere at the Chinese Theater out there in LA. The movie itself, like a 5 out of 10. As a Warcraft movie, though, how it all looked and sounded, and just to see it all that large, that was huge. That was a lot of fun. I mean, everything looked incredibly good. The sets, the CG, the way that magic would work, not just like same cast animation we've had for 8 years, whatever. Obviously, it all looked very different. But, the best characters are definitely the orcs. I'm with Nobbel on that one. And
the storytelling was just weird, where they're sitting around a campfire and all of a sudden Garona pipes up and they're like, you want to do me? And I'm like,
stop.
What?
No, stop.
That scene was so weird.
Studio interaction, taking away power from Duncan Jones.
Well, that's unfortunate, but as the person who hosted Blizzard's launch of the movie in the UK, I have to tell you that the nice people at Universal Studios told me that it was actually the greatest movie ever made, and they paid me, and I agree with them.
Yeah, there it is.
Been there, done that.
Oh yeah,
it was a wonderful launch party where I got to swing all the weapons and things.
Yeah, I forgot. FinalBossTV. Oh, it was actually Mike. Suddenly I feel like I agree with you.
Yeah,
best movie ever. I'm glad we
it was great.
We turned that stone over. Glad we did. So Crucible of the Storms sets up for a lot of things though that are going to be happening, and I think that it's important to touch on that. Not only is that the case for lore, I feel like that's also the case for rewards in the game, and it shows a lot. Like we're moving forward in BFA in a big way. How do you feel though, Nobbel, about starting things off in BFA with the whole Horde versus Alliance conflict, something that we've had time and time again? You have all this Azerite mumbo jumbo, and now all of a sudden the real show pops up.
Yeah, I remember clearly when watching the announcement for Battle for Azeroth, I personally was hoping for like the Old God expansion, right? I felt that Legion was setting it up quite nicely. And all of a sudden you see like this massive battle at Lordaeron, and I remember clearly saying, where are the tentacles? Where are the Old Gods at?
Yeah,
you know me so well.
I mean,
but for me,
such a vast collection. Do you need the game?
I need more. Yeah, I need more. Look, I got my waifu back. I got Sylvanas. Tentacles. Gonna be great.
Strong and stable. My queen. Big love.
Oh boy, you are gonna have one hell of a time. But when it comes to the faction war, I don't mind faction war on paper, but what I do mind is such a repeat of something that's already been told before. And that just annoys me to no end. Even when they change certain characters, like with a character like Garrosh, and I was talking about this today as well, you can say things like Garrosh has the heart of the Horde, right? Garrosh has the people behind him. But something like that doesn't work for characters like Gallywix or Sylvanas, right? And when you just hear the dialogue repeated, it's like, did they learn nothing from previous expansions? And that doesn't go just for Battle for Azeroth. They're very keen on telling a story in an expansion and then kind of forgetting about it in the next one. So when it comes to the faction conflict, yeah, I'm very excited about the things that are going to happen. They announced the BlizzCon, I could talk about it. Like the return of Thrall. That is something that's definitely on the agenda. And I like those points. But again, I'm a bigger fan of all the old god stuff that's going down and where it might lead to.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I kind of feel like the idea of it set up for this Old Gods expansion. Like, I really wanted this to be an Old Gods expansion, and then after that, we went into the Void, and we're like in space, we're floating around, we're getting slapped around by tentacles. Like, that's what I want, and I still do want that, and I still do think that there's hope for that. But there was this huge distraction of the what?
Just.
Don't you want to be slapped around by tentacles, Bay?
Well, Rich is going to take them all at this point. I mean, they're all his now at this point.
I hope one day. The thing is I feel like there is so much exciting storytelling that hasn't been focused on yet. Mm-hmm. And it's all set up. Like, it's all there, especially. So full disclosure for everybody here, I'm not necessarily the biggest lore person on the planet. Like, I don't read quest text. I really don't pay attention to lore at all when I play the game. But I've always watched novels content for a very long time. That was the thing that got me into lore. And then when Chronicle came out, I was excited about it. And I actually read all of Chronicle, and it was really enjoyable. It was a really fun thing, and it added a huge element to the game to me that I never really expected to get much from. That was never the reason that I played WoW. And the second that I read Chronicle and saw all of those changes that they kind of made to the idea of how the Void really did work, they changed that Sargeras story, the idea of being on a nascent Titan. I was so excited to explore that portion of the game. And they're like, even with Legion, right? Like, Legion sets up for this giant epic battle that had existed for such a long time. And I wasn't even as excited about that as I was for the potential to experience these old gods, these ultimate real bad things, and eventually get to venture into the Void. And Nobbel, do you think that there still is an opportunity for that to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's the thing. The end of the expansion is definitely not set in stone. And even though there are a lot of similarities with Mr. Pandaria, and worst case scenario, we do end up with a siege of Orgrimmar, and we kick Sylvanas at the Mental War Chief, and we put her on trial, and she goes to an alternate reality. But there are definitely other cool alternatives that they could do. They could also have Sylvanas step away from the Horde and team with the Lich King, as some suggest. Or she could sacrifice herself as her sister fall to the Void. Or we could see N'Zoth break out of prison and have like the rise of the Black Empire, where all the old gods are suddenly all across the planet, and we have to fix the situation. Or maybe Azeroth is indeed doomed, and we'll have to go into space in the Great Dark Beyond and visit all these kind of new planets. It can still go in a lot of directions. Like you mentioned, for some raiders, like Mike, the story will never be a thing, right? It'll never be the main motivation of playing. But I too personally found it adding a layer to my gaming experience, knowing why you do instead of for the loot and the glory. Yeah, it added something to me as well. Yeah.
But also look at it for all the innovations that we have in storytelling that have happened in this expansion. Look at the simple things that used to exist in the game. Not to go on a rant, like I don't know why all of a sudden I'm so passionate about lore, but this is something that just like randomly springs out of me sometimes. With lore in particular in the game, because I look back at Wrath of the Lich King, and that is around the time when all of a sudden the internet led me to your videos, right? Like I wasn't involved in the community really at all. I was raiding a lot. That was really my focus with the game. Nobody ever even recommended your channel to me. That was out of just interest of what was happening because of the Lich King and being so interested in that, kind of having inklings of the ideas from playing Warcraft back in the day. And sure enough, YouTube brought me to your channel and I devoured all of that content. I devoured the heck out of it and I was hooked. But what did the game do for the lack of so many of the innovations that we potentially have now with storytelling and cinematics and all these things? That there was a bad guy on the box, and that was a powerful thing. The second that I purchased Wrath of the Lich King, I saw the guy that I wanted to go toe to toe with and take down, and he kept springing up in all these dungeons, and he was just in my face. What is it that makes old gods not seem like they were the big bad enough, like that they can be these things that are on the boss and will make us sit there at the beginning of the expansion and say, I want to take down that baddie. That is the guy that I want to decimate. Why do we have to have this Mist of Pandaria kind of thing where it's like, oh, look, there are pandas. And it's like, oh, but there's secret corruption beneath the surface, which doesn't, I feel like that hype doesn't generate itself at the beginning of the expansion, right? Like it really doesn't. And I'm kind of curious why you feel it is like that.
Well, the old gods are like this thread that are working behind the curtains, right? If you think back to the Cataclysm, where Deathwing was the big bad, but all of that was orchestrated by N'Zoth. Similar here, where we now have Azora and potentially maybe Sylvanas stepping up as being big baddies. They're always behind. They're always signing the paychecks. If you, in the past, before the Chronicles, if you would trace back any storyline in Warcraft itself, you'd either end up with Sargeras and the Legion, you end up with the Titans, or with the old gods. So they're not really the front and center of this is the big bad. And I think that's...
chime in here. Sorry, just to chime in as somebody who's not into the lore, and the reason I don't particularly like the Void stuff is that it is exactly what Nobbel said. So if you're not really into the story, it's always like you kind of see something that's inspirational or something that's kind of like, oh, this is cool. And there's been a lot of that in BFA for me as well. Like the Sylvanas stuff, I quite enjoy. Then they go, but actually, it's the old gods that are doing everything. And you're just like, oh, come on, dude. Like, then nobody feels like it's hard to get connected to the story even when you're outside and it starts pulling you in. And then they go, but actually, it's this stuff. And it's like, there's no, it doesn't feel real at that point. Because you're always kind of expecting, you know, like that cliche in movies and stuff where it's like, it's all a dream. Or it was somebody else that was doing this and somebody else that was doing that. So every time that the Void and the old gods get involved, that's what I feel happens with the story is everybody kind of loses their responsibility and it just falls back to them. And I lose interest in what they're talking about. 'Cause it's like, well, it wasn't anything to do with these characters who I kind of started to get into. I started to kind of get into their story and now it's not them. And so from an outside perspective, that's one of the reasons I don't particularly enjoy them, because you don't see them until later in the expansion. And now, because we have seen the story before, is when these stories do come up where somebody you don't expect to be behaving that way is behaving that way, you kind of, I'm always thinking it's probably old gods or, you know.
Well, to be fair, the things that Sylvanas has done so far is pretty much Sylvanas herself, though. Like, it isn't...
Which is why it's great, right? I mean, that's why I voted.
I'm well down with it. The only thing that's disappointing is that it's another Horde aggression, another Horde war chief that has to be the bad guy.
Isn't that why we chose Horde?
Well, you'd say that, but then again...
That is why you choose Horde, to be the bad guy.
Yeah, I looked at Gnomes, Mr. Clean Shaven, Tauren. Come on.
Yeah, but Horde, honor, Horde is family, you know, standing together in a world that's hostile towards them.
You lie. There's this guy called Saurfang, and he used Horde, and he has no honor. So that's wrong. Not to correct you on your lore or anything. I'm just saying. That's not quite true.
I actually, you know, as much as we're talking about the lore in 8.2, there is a lot to be excited about coming up in 8.2. And tomorrow, you guys can actually tune into the show as well. We're going to be doing a deep dive. I know that we're going to have Bay here. We're going to have Breach here. And also, I'm not sure if I can say who the special guest is going to be as of yet, but it's going to be a really stacked day. And we can really get into some of the things in 8.2. I even saw Wildhead tweet out during the show, and you guys were actually the ones who made me notice, potentially Titan forging is going away, or there's a deterministic way to make sure that you can get up to that item level in 8.2. We already touched on the changes that are coming in the Heart of Azra. Yeah, apparently there's a lot of good stuff happening in 8.2. Wow. We'll do a deep dive on that tomorrow. I just wanted to let you guys know, same time, same place tomorrow. We're going to be doing this show I think it's going to be for the next 2 months, because I think that Uu'nat's going to take a very long time to take down. As long as the raid is going on, we're going to be doing this show and getting to look at all the different aspects and bringing on so many of the different raiders as well to talk about everything. But Nobbel, lore 8.2, we have the shift coming. Do you think if we didn't have this giant shift? Oh, go ahead, Bay.
No, I was going to bring up, I had it sitting here waiting because this was actually something that piped in, because I don't know if your question was going to this, but this guy is coming back. We were talking about 8.2. I wanted to make sure you didn't leave the conversation before we brought up Thrall, because he's right there. He's doing his little animation. It looks a little different. This is what you were trying to get to earlier, and I was trying to get this in, but...
Oh, he's at it again with the models, boys.
Yeah, well...
Make him kiss, make him kiss.
What's the
Make
kiss?
him kiss.
Just
Where's the
show
kiss? Make him
everyone.
kiss.
Rich
Make
was
him
so excited about the lore stuff. So I didn't know if you wanted to bring anything else up about Thrall.
I mean, I can tell you what's going to happen, but it's going to be just full on 8.2 spoilers.
Is it?
Put a 1 in the chat if you don't want spoilers. Put a 2 in the chat if you want to be spoiled like a little rotten baby.
Whoa.
Who is he anyway? Is he like a horde guy?
Yeah, Thrall, he used to be a horde guy. Now he's more a family man. You know,
I think
times
we're better
change
off
and all
without
that.
him.
He used to raid a lot during the Burning Crusade. Was like his highlight, but then he got kids and all that.
Oh,
He's
one
like
of them
actually
old-timers, is he?
the thick daddy now. It's actually crazy.
The thick daddy.
He's legitimately the thick daddy now.
But I
He's
can do
swinging that doom mace thing.
I think I can do like a little background for Thrall. Like the last time that we really saw Thrall.
The vendor trash now.
Wow. You're dissing my boy Thrall. How dare you?
I
First
put
you go like
I put his
Sourfang
weapons
has
in the
no
bank. My greens are better.
Oof.
Wow.
Oof.
Poor Thrall. He tries so hard.
Do you remember that time he was cool?
Yeah, I think it was before
neither.
Cataclysm. Wow.
I'm joking. I quite like Thrall.
Do you though? Really?
Yeah, when he went down the river in that little wicker basket, that was cool.
God, stop with the fucking movie, please. With Cool Dan draining the life out of a deer and then giving it to Thrall, and it's like you're alive. Why?
I'm just here to push buttons and find things put on screen. You guys, I don't know what that was like.
You put me in the
Moses
law
Jesus
conversation.
work. Yeah.
Rich, you are the chat was bringing up earlier how you were the light and I was the darkness, and now it looks like our roles have been reversed.
Dude, I tried to change my camera in OBS today. Like I tried to change it in OBS, so when the sun was out, you could see the background and also see my face, and it worked in OBS. But then when I got into the program that we're in right now, it changed everything. Like, and now I just I need
do you
to
own a light, Rich? Like an actual
Like
bulb?
curtains, a lamp, maybe?
like in front of me.
Watch this, Rich. I'm gonna blow your mind. You ready?
Wow.
That's right. That's
Wait, how
called the
did you-
Thrall skill. Yeah, you see that? Elemental.
I actually don't own a light. I don't.
Just put a torch in front of your nose. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
Just grab your phone with like a flashlight on it. Hold it up.
That's actually not a terrible idea.
Just a mustache right now. I just want you to know that.
There we go.
Welcome.
Fixed.
To the secret society of nighttime stories.
Oh no.
Your host.
So tell me more about the old god. There you go. I'll put that away.
I like this.
Yeah, I kind of like that too. We could tell some scary stories. We could just. And Azurite armor stays in the game for the rest of Warcraft.
And they said in 9.0, there'll be more pruning.
Those abilities aren't coming back, nerd. That'll be the only
That would
DPS
be
in
the
ever
best
raid.
patch note ever, nerd.
Yeah.
Oh,
Common
no.
nerd. Period. Too scary. Too scary. Okay. We'll give you guys some of the good news. Okay, so we don't want to spoil anybody with stuff that's happening with Thrall. Have you made any spoiler videos though yet on your YouTube for anybody who does have an inquisitive mind and wants to know a little bit before the game does come out what's going on with either the Thick Daddy or anything that's going on with the old gods?
Yeah. Yesterday, I think. So it's coming up. Also on Wowhead, they got, of course, the juicy data mining going on with all the sexy models and whatnot. As the PTR goes on, we'll get more and more information.
That's where I'm pulling everything up from. I don't want to take the wind out of our sails for tomorrow, but I did pull up the data mined Ajaran Purling Enhancement, which does have my main spec's name in it. So obviously it's going to be the solution to everything, because shamans are on the rise right now, as you can tell, because elementals are finally in. We just got to bring enhancements in, right? But I mean, we don't know what this is going to be yet. I'm just looking at the tooltip right now.
I'm trying to see what you pulled up, but I just see us.
Yeah, it'll just take like a little while. Because we have like.
Oh, I didn't put it on screen yet. Do I want to bring it up on screen? I mean, I can bring it up on screen. I thought
you pulled it up like on screen as well.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's not completely tease everybody in the chat. This is something that literally just got tweeted out.
Yep.
Empower the pearl item from Nashatar, increasing the item level by 5. Oh.
It's from Najatar, though. So it looks like it's a gearing system within the next tier of gear.
Yeah, it looks like a catch-up thing.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is like the because the tweet is just based on data mining stuff. We don't know if it's going to be some new system or whatnot. I know we have...
I think, no, they said it was going to be like 20,000 Najapex crystals.
Stop.
Najapexis crystals, something like that.
I like did it. That did not register for like a solid 30 seconds for me. I was like, yeah, Najapex crystals sounds good. Okay, so we're gonna be able to get the Najapex crystals, and then we're gonna be able to level up our gear. Sounds about right. Everything's in order.
Rich.
Hey, I hope that it's a system that potentially. I don't think that something like this would be perfect for the game, but sure. I wouldn't really mind if there was a definitive way to level up gear the same way that some of the badge systems did in the past, and we were able to not have to completely rely on Titan Forging to get full Vestin slot, and there was a definitive way to do it. Whether that is something that we get from a zone that's focused around dailies, solo play, and world quests, that's the question.
Because Mechagon has a system as well, a separate system.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see whether they go hand in hand. Mechagon is focused on rings and trinkets, so they might be splitting it. So like Najatar is armor, and you get similar to what we had with relinquished stuff in Argus. Same sort of idea, is you'll get a thing that turns into something.
How is the, I know you mentioned it before, that you were talking about it in DMs on Twitter, but how is the necklace spirit thing looking? The things you can upgrade and whatnot.
I'm out.
No,
it's okay. It's okay. I've just, it's a big question, Nobbel.
Oh.
It's a big question.
I'm just bringing it up because they got like little storylines attached to it, which I really like, but how does it work out in gameplay?
Should we talk about the, make me void form again. That was awesome. I kind of like being purple void form. I slid into Preach's DMs about the neck pretty quickly. And I haven't gotten to talk to Bay about it, and Nobbel, I obviously haven't gotten to talk to you about it. You know what? Let's talk about it right now for just a little bit. I think the neck, what the changes to the necklace in 8.2, for anybody who doesn't know, we're basically getting a system where now the Heart of Azeroth is going to have 3 slots. One is unlocked at 65 Azerite power. The other one's unlocked at 55, which everybody should be able to have. And the main one is just kind of inherent. It's there on the Azerite necklace. The main one is called the major slot, and then the other 2 are minor slots. And what happens is there are these essences, which Nobbel alluded to. They all have their own story attached to them. They also all have 3 different tiers as to what we know right now, and they all have a different way to obtain them as well. And we're dangerously okay. Let's not dive into it too much. How exciting does this sound? Let's talk about it tomorrow. Let's talk about everything with the necklace tomorrow. I'm getting carried away.
The storylines are really, really nice. It's really something I'm looking forward
to. My only big point that I was going to bring up here is that if you were, not every single one's going to have a dense storyline to it, but if you sort of missed that the class hall or artifact stories, some of these are essentially that. And there's a lot to go after. If you have a collector's itch, if you like, I want to get these because they're all gameplay unlocks, then that will be something, and we can look at these more in depth tomorrow. Mike and I are back tomorrow. We can talk about this because we have.
Am I?
I think so.
Apparently you are. You're booked.
You're booked. Either whatever.
What else you got to do anyways, right? It's not like you're rating. You know.
I'm here right now. There it is again.
I just want to I just want to say collector's itch. Is that what Asmongold has? Is that what it's called? Collector's itch?
That's not what's itching.
I didn't want to go there.
I wasn't gonna. I'm not throwing
It's a different
Jack under
kind
the
of
bus. Yeah, that's different.
Oh
That's
man, I'm I love the Consumed by the Void look. I want to give a major shout out once again to Method, not putting the show on, but these assets just look awesome. Really bouncing off everything with Crucible of the Storms. I love how everything has looked so far. And I also do want to say, like, thank you so much, Nobbel, for jumping on right now. It's fun to actually get to look at all of the reasons these things are happening, why we're all purple, and what's going on there. And Breach, obviously.
We were planning to do this for the previous 2 raids as well, where there's like a massive story behind it, and now it's like the interlude, and now I got the time for it. So hopefully maybe next time with
that was cool, because I don't know. I rely on you so much to understand why I'm doing anything in this game.
Aww.
Like last Legion for me, I helped some crack addicts, and that was it. That was the bit that I took away from Legion. And then there was a big knife. That was strange.
All of a sudden in the planet, like how did that happen?
Yeah.
Legion story. So good.
I also do want to say, for the story to some people can seem somewhat overwhelming, right? So for anybody who doesn't know the lore yet, Nobbel, recommend they start. Where should they dive in?
Oh gosh.
If you really want to get into the lore and you want to do it yourself, I would recommend going the route that you followed, picking up the Chronicles 1, 2, and 3. That's a really good place to start. If you're looking for more a visual audio kind of feeling, I have a massive playlist that also covers the Chronicles and all the other characters and zones and stories. I'm working on one day I want to cover every bit that it has to offer. We're getting close. You remember that, Bay, that I said that like 5 years ago on your show? I want to cover everything that we have.
And you had like a list, right? You had like a list, and you'll maybe like in a few
still
years.
have a list.
But I mean, in a few years, I'll be done, right? There'll be nothing else to cover.
And then they came out with Chronicles, and it's like, it's changed. It's all changed.
Not even one Chronicle. We're on 3 now, and is the 4th one still pending, right?
Maybe. It is a to be continued in number 3, but I don't know if they have enough to tell. And then you have the videos, and besides that, there's also short stories on the website. Like, there's a lot to cover. There's also websites available with all the information. I would recommend find something that you're interested in, be it the Lich King, be it Old Gods, be it Jara and Tentacles, whatever, and dive in there and see what the history is. And maybe you'll like it. Maybe we'll open up a whole new world where you're like, oh, so that's Bolvar, and that's Windrunner, right? Or maybe you won't, and that's fine as well.
Yeah, I remember like when I was completely pulled in was Broxigar's story. Like for some reason, that was something that, I was just like, this is so cool. And I wanted to know more. And, you know, there are just so many little things that I really do recommend it, guys, because it might just open up the game to you in a new way. Like you look at even like a little bit of a tooltip. I think it was like Rockbiter weapon is the icon from Broxigar's weapon or something like that. It was like this little thing where I'm like, all of a sudden it's like, wow, this feels so cool. Like this ability feels like it does so much more. Guys, I highly recommend checking out Nobbel's channel. I've enjoyed it a lot over the years, but I also want to say tune in tomorrow. So tomorrow we have confirmation. It's going to be me and Bay, and also we are going to have Yithasins, we're going to have Caden House, and Perculia is going to be here as well. So Perk's actually going to be able to talk about some of the stuff going on in 8.2. And this show would not be possible without Method, and it would not be possible without Corsair, Vertigear, Kensington, Gamer, Wowhead, MSI, and Twitch, which is what you're watching on right now. And we're going to be doing this event, all of Crucibles of the Storms, throughout the entirety of Progression, which I think at this point is probably going to last for several months. I think that this is going to be a very tough tier to get down. So guys, be sure to tune in tomorrow. It's going to be every single day starting at 2:30 p.m., right?
2:30 p.m. It's the goal to have the stream going so you can get in your seats, and then we'll start at about 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, or your local time therein. And it depends on when the Method guys are going to be either jumping in and jumping out, depending on what their schedule is like, depending on if they're going to be pushing to longer hours or if they'll be ending when the show's still going, and we can pull on someone from Method. So that's the current plan, is that it has an organic second half whenever the guys are done with their raid. So
yeah, I mean, right as the show ends too, some potential for spiciness in the race as well. Having
what happened?
Just triggered their final relic They're in great shape.
Uh-oh. Well, we have, I mean, the boss is telling us we have to cut this off, though, unless do we want to go look at this? Are we going to look?
I think Terry just said we could go back to Lighty for just a second here. To maybe take a peek. We might be ending the show. Yeah, we might be ending the show.
They have dealt with all the relic mechanics. That's it. It's done. They just have to keep the tanks up right now, and they have to get this done.
This is the 20% one where you're looking at?
Yep.
Ooh.
So both these bosses need to die at the same time. The bosses are doing extreme damage, but they're not doing any major mechanics right now. You can see the power buffs are starting to build on the other players.
We'll hop over right
one
now.
Player down right now.
We're hopping over. I had to change scenes. I got you, Chad. I got you.
There we go. Sorry for the little bit of a delay there. We thought that the day was over, and now Limit going to prove
They haven't been close for the last hour or so, let me tell you.
Yeah, I had the stream
maybe
paused.
one of the.
Yeah.
Oh, they did you see how much they held there to get that Whispers of Power and as many people as possible? They really held to the last second. That was such.
Was that why they stood in the count together?
Yeah, they stood there. They took it to the very last second to make sure they got as many of those buffs spread as possible onto the entire raid.
10%.
Only one guild in the world has it down right now. That's going to be Pieces. Method may wake up to 2 guilds having it down. Chat, gotta ask you right now, where are you? Because it looks like we may see these 2 bad boys fall.
Yeah, they just had to remove their DPS buffs because they've got some damage incoming, but that's fine because they did enough little bursts with it for that short window that they had.
Down. Uh-oh. Now it seems if we can do the amazing boss block of shame.
No, disaster. The tanks fell.
Well, I was here,
No,
Rich.
wait, what?
Yeah. It's Berserk. Look, the bosses are berserked.
Is this caster curse, Rich?
Oh, yeah, no, it's definitely something. That is one of
There
the
it
craziest things ever. And now I'm assuming right now we're going to have a situation where Limit is probably going to continue progressing. Like I'm assuming that they're going to keep on pushing forward.
It's only 8 o'clock.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's not that late on the East Coast. It's not that late in California for sure. So we could potentially see these guys going for quite a few more hours. You guys, if you want to keep watching the progression, we do highly recommend it. This race is still very much underway. That's going to be it for us here on the Method After Show for that Crucible of Storms talk show. We will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for everybody who came on. And man, this is already a good race.
It's the best. It's one of the best we've seen in a while for spectators. So good.
We'll see you all later.
I'm just sad that I don't have a Shadow Priest. Look at the damage meter, dude.
I'm leveling mine tonight. I'm leveling mine tonight. Yeah.
I like that.